Hello everyone! After I died extensively with Ice Spear Totem Build, I wanted to try something that was more tanky and that I could do tier 17 maps and it would be a little more different from the meta. As a summary, the build I'm going to show you has in the best case 7 million DPS, in the worst scenario it has around 2 million, it has 590k effective hit pool, it has immunity to bleeding, corrupted blood, elemental ailment and stun. Overall cost of the build is around 50 to 70 divines at the time I've made. The build is not for everyone, it is a totem build, a weird skill totem build. The damage just kinda has a loading time and the map clear is not fantastic nor it is very fast. But I like playing non-meta builds that have a certain weird way of playing. One skill I really wanted to try is the Flamewood skill. This skill increases the life of the supported totems that are linked to it, and when the totem takes damage, it releases a projectile in the air that hits the target, dealing fire damage equal to a percentage of the totem health. For the totem, we are using Rejuvenation Totem, which has a maximum amount of life that a totem can have. We're linking this with multiple totems for more totems, and empower it to further increase the level of Rejuvenation Totem for more health. If you want more AoE, you could use an Awaken Increase Arrow effect here. I went for this Empower to have more damage for the bosses, as the clear was not that better with increased area of effect. Our main skill is going to be placed in our gloves. This is because we are using Black Zenith fingerless silk gloves. We're using these because everything in it has an advantage for us except the projectiles fire in a circle, which doesn't affect us. The +2 to sock away gems is the best crafting blister we can have, as it increases our totem level and our Flamewood level gem as well. To increase our damage on the single target, we are going to use a similar craft setup as in our Ice Spear build. In our armor, we're going to have our craft setup, which consists of an Arcanist brand, Elemental Weakness, Sniper's Mark, Flammability, Enfeeble, and Empower. I've chosen Enfeeble and not Punishment to make us more tankier. If we look at Enfeeble, we're going to take 22% less damage from uniques and rare monsters. For our auras, we're using Purity of Elements, Determination, Herald of Ash, Defiance Banner, and 03 linked to Divine Blessing. Sadly, we need a level 4 Enlighten in our aura setup to be able to cast them all. In the case of 03, because we're using Eldritch Battery, we don't need to worry that we dissolve all our mana. For more defensive abilities, we're using the new gem that were introduced this league, Automation and Call to Arms. Automation, we have it linked with Molten Shell. Molten Shell makes the most sense looking at other gold skills considering the amount of armor we have. And Call to Arms, we link it with Enduring Cry and an Enhance. The items that we are using beside the gloves are the Dark Seer Shadow Scepter for our weapon, for the +2 level of all skills gems, and the maximum energy shield per level, which allows us to have enough energy shield to cast Zillow 3. Dawnbreaker Colossal Tower Shield in our offhand for more armor, and the damage taken as fire, which adds more survivability overall. The helmet is rare with life, armor, resistances, and dex, which we need for level 21 Sniper's Mark. For our armor, we're using the 4th Vow Devout Chainmail. The armor also applies to chalice damage taken from hits, which help us with our survivability. The regen helps us as well, and the chalice resistance. The physical damage taken bypasses energy shield doesn't affect us, as we're using Eldritch Battery. The gloves we already discussed them previously. The boots are rare, they have a Shaper influence on them, which gives us 30% increased totem damage. They also give us life, resistances, and movement speed. Sticking to the survivability part of the build, the amulet we are using is the Eternal Damnation Agate Amulet that gives us elemental damage reduction equal to half our chalice resistance. It gives us a little bit of chalice resistance but drops our maximal resistances by 5. The rings are Paralytic Devastation to cover our enemies in Ash when we ignite them, as this provides us with a significant damage boost. The other one is Anathema to enable our multiple curse setup. Our belt is Stygian Wise with Dex, Life, and Resistances, with an Abyssal Jewel that gives us life and increased armor if you haven't killed recently, which is always active as our Torsom heals do not count as our own, except if they die for Ignite, which is unlikely. For the Flask, we have on each of the magic flasks the prefix Gain charges when you're hit by an enemy. As we'll get hit a lot, this ensures our flask uptime. We're using a Quartz Flask for the phasing, mostly so we can move around the enemies when they swarm us. A Ruby Flask to increase our maximum fire resistance as we're taking a lot of fire damage from our shield. We also have the crafted 50% damage taken from hits as leashed as life here. A Quicksilver with increased armor doing effect for obvious movement speed and defenses. a Granite Flask for more armor and some movement speed, and a Taste of Hate for the 15% of physical damage taken from hits are taken as cold. This is how our tree looks like. As you can see, we're kind of all over the place taking totem damage nodes and survivability nodes. One important thing is the passive Aron Hongui Moon Presence that we get from Chieftain by using Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame jewels, and this gives our Rejuvenation Totem taunt and recoup the damage taken from our totems. If we did not have this point, we'll have to use a decoy totem that has the same damage but will not provide us with the regeneration. The key reasons we choose the Juggernaut Ascendancy is because of the nodes Unbreakable and Unrelenting, which both provide us with massive damage reductions as we are stacking armor and have maximum endurance chances once we start getting hit by having the Unflinching node as well, which is our charge generation mechanic. The last node I went for is Unwielding for more damage per endurance charge, but you can also take Untiring for more regeneration and survivability. As you can see, we are using a Gloria Vanity Timeless jewel for the Divine Flesh node. This ties with our overall item decisions, as we have 50% of our elemental damage taken as showers damage. We then have the shield which converts 90% of our damage types except showers to fire damage, which is elemental damage. We have another 6% physical as fire from the helmet implicit, and we have the body armor which makes our armor to also apply to showers damage from hits, and finally the amulet which gives us elemental damage reduction equal to or half our showers resistance. The short version of what I just said is, basically we convert a lot of our damage taken to elemental damage, which we then take as showers damage, which is mitigated by our armor and our high showers resistance, which gives us 590k effective hit pool. As I mentioned earlier, in regards to immunity, this build is immune to bleeding because of the armor and evasion mastery, immune to stun because of the wavering stance, immune to corrupted blood because of the implicit or abyssal jewel, and immune to elemental elements because of the purity of elements. One important note that we take advantage from the Glorious Vanity Jewel is the Cult of the Chaos. We have 3 in range. We are using Impossible Escape Jewel to get easy access to 1, the other 2 being in our path directly. This increases our maximum charge resistance, which goes hand in hand with our damage mitigation strategy. For our Cluster Jewel, we're using an 8 passive skill 1 with increased fire damage on the small passive skills, with Prismatic Heart for resistances and elemental damage, corrosive elements for the chance to fire exposure and elemental damage, and disorienting display for the elemental damage and the chance to blind nearby enemies. The chance to blind works really well with our weapon, Dark Seer, which says that enemies blinded by us have malediction, which decreases their damage dealt by 10%, and they also take increased damage by 10%, which is great for us. The other jewels we are using are 2 Forbidden Flesh and Flame, an Impossible Escape, Rain of Splinters for more projectiles, and a rare jewel with life, dex, resistance, and increased spell damage while holding a shield. That covers our tree. I've done all the tier 17 maps, including the bosses, and I'll be showing you the gameplay in the next video to keep this short. The same for the Uber bosses. Regarding the bosses, I've managed to kill some Ubers with this build, even if it's not really suited for some boss fights. I've tried my best. I've killed Uber Exarch, Uber Eater, Uber Shaper, Uber Sarwest, Uber Cartex, and Uber Elder. I've tried Uber Maven and failed. We simply do not have the damage to burst her, and I personally suck at her memory game. The fights are not deathless, mostly because of me and also how we deal our damage with the totem mechanic, as the totems cannot taunt the bosses. Basically, the bosses targeted me and I have to direct them to the totems. Hope you liked the video and the build. Thank you for your support and have a good one!